You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't going to be that fun. Everybody, welcome back to the week. It is the Doug Collins Podcast. We're glad you're here. I appreciate all the shout outs and all. I mentioned this on Friday's Finest as well, but I want to mention it again here today. Thanks for all the love and shout out for being on Seb Gorka's radio show. Always love being on Seb, hosting for him when he's out. 3 hours nationally and just the callers from all over the country. Y'all are great. I appreciate you a bunch and glad that you're listening into the podcast as well. Remember, if you are coming into the podcast and you please share the podcast, share the link. All you got to do is go to the DougCollinsPodcast.com. You can share it. You can like it. Leave us a remark. We'd love to have the feedback. Also, if you ever need to get in touch with me for speaking engagements, anything across the country, I have people who reach out sometimes. And I'll be frank with you, I don't see some of the social media outreaches as much. Now, I have some folks who try to help me with that, but we do miss them. So if you're DMing me or you're putting it in the Facebook messages or stuff like that, I don't see those as often. So go to the DougCollinsPodcast.com, hit the email button and send those email requests to me, and then I can see them and we can make contact to get in touch with you wherever you are in the country. And we appreciate you being a part of this show. Hey, today's show is going to be a little different, and not in the sense that we're of what we're talking about, but it's going to be one that I want to bring sort of a full circle around on this issue of liberalism and really the decline that many times I believe liberalism is actually encouraging a race to what I'll call mediocrity or the bottom. I've seen this before. I've thought about writing about it. I've thought about some other things, and I'm still formulating. But today I've got some random ideas that really hit me that I wanted to talk about as we start this week, because as you look ahead, you'll see what I'm talking about. So after the break, we're going to get into this idea of the fall of the West as it relates to liberalism's sort of what I'll say is not an achievement scenario, but a disincentive to achievement area. So let's look at it right after the break. We'll be right back. Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finance. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times. Hey, everybody, Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank all of my listeners, the Great Doug Collins Podcast listeners, for your continued support. To thank you, they're offering an overstocked clearance sale right now for the best price you ever use when you use the promo code Collins, COLLINS, and you get free shipping on the entire order. You get 50% off the MyPillow 2.0, the brand new flannel sheets that just arrived and won't last long. Get six-pack towel sets for only $29.98. and take advantage of the free shipping on large items like mattresses and mattress toppers. 100% made here in the United States and on sale for as low as $99. Everything is on sale, from the brand new kitchen tiles that have the same technology as the bath tiles that actually absorb dog beds, blankets, couch pillows, and much, much more. To get the best specials ever, go to the mypillow.com, and use the promo code Collins, Collins, or call 800-986-3994 and use the same keyword Collins, Collins, and get free shipping on your entire order while supplies last. My Pillow products, thank you. Y'all go check them out. All right, let's dive into this. There's a few things that I wanted to first point out as we get into this, and I'm going to talk about an article that was written that was basically talking about a book that was written 60 years ago that sort of, in many ways, looked at civilization, looked at where we were, and set up a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And it was a book by James Burnham called Suicide of the West. Conservatives loved it. Liberals hated it, mainly because the West and the liberal ideology was to ridicule, was the ideological, and what Burnham's words were, the ideology of Western suicide. And he goes through a lot of this issue. We're going to get into Burnham's ideas here in just a few minutes, because I'm going to take a book 60 years ago and some writings that took 60 years ago, and I'm going to apply them actually to real life today. And I think it's going to get us into a process here of looking at what liberalism really does. And this is an issue that it needs more discussion, because liberalism wants to make out conservatism as to be a non-thought or a bigoted racist ideology, where the fact is liberalism and its all-inclusiveness, race to the bottom or race to the middle at best, is really the thing that it is killing innovation. It's killing society. It's this idea that all are the same. There's no idea of exceptionalism. Remember, we've talked about this before on the podcast, that it's not the idea of equal opportunities from all. They have to have equal outcomes for all. Now, that's a big difference. And don't let the left, sort of mess you over in this, because the left will try to say that all they're wanting is equal opportunities, but the reality is they want equal outcomes. So this is a huge difference that conservatives unfortunately miss, and many conservatives don't talk about at all, is an opportunity exists when someone has the ability to follow their dreams, passion, ideas, whatever that may be, on equal footing with everybody else. And so no matter where you come from, what background you come from, you're if you are able to do the things that need to be done, you have a chance at fulfilling that outcome, whatever that may be. The idea of equal opportunity, the outcome side of it is different. The outcome side of it is when the liberals say that everybody ought to get a participation trophy. I'm going to put it in very simple terms here, that everybody's ideas are equal. Everybody's ideas are valued. Every idea is the same. Every idea has the intrinsic weight of everything else. And the reality is that's just not true. And because it takes the next step, and for those of you, and especially if there's any liberals listening to this, you're saying, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is you're making you take out the entire underpinning of moral judgment. You take out the entire underpinning of God's, what I believe God's giftedness to man to make decisions that are based on a code or a moral code or a civilization code, if you would. I think it's the best way to put it. Or you can go back to the writers of the Enlightenment, the Locke and others, who said, you have a social contract, that there are certain things that are understood. There are certain things of right and wrong. And when you take a liberalism approach that everything is right and nothing is wrong, then you leave yourself out in a position of a mass gray instead of a true black and white. This is, again, I know this is a lot for Monday, and I want to get into it with you, but I want you to understand sort of where this is coming from, because I see this in the Biden administration. I see it in liberalism even more so, and not even in and this is going to sound crazy, but Biden has become the progressive that they wanted him to become. Joe Biden was not the progressive that he is today for the vast majority of his career. He finally owned it up and took it on when he was elected president because, it's his belief and the belief of liberals that they were the ones that elected him president. It was their turnout. It was their anti-Trump focus, and that the liberal mantras that they had been chanting for 4 years under Donald Trump were the things that actually won the presidency for Joe Biden. But remember, Joe Biden is also the one that wrote, promoted, however you want to do it, the disastrous crime bill of the early 90s. I mean, it's just nothing but a disaster for, especially for minority groups and for inner cities and for others. It was just not a good thing. He also, carried friendships back to, segregationists. I mean, there's just so much that was not Joe Biden of today. Now, as you look at this and you move forward into the distinguishment right now of the liberalism that is also the doublespeak that you see in liberalism. I mean, how is it that Vice President Harris has a weed summit, is the best way to put it, last week with Fat Joe and others at the White House talking about marijuana, and she had the just basic audacity to sit there and say no one should be put in jail for marijuana possession. And this is the same prosecutor in California who led to mass arrest and incarceration of people for marijuana. This was what Tulsi Gabbard pointed out on the debate stage in 2020 that really wrecked Kamala Harris in many ways in her newfound liberalism, is the fact that it didn't match her old self. But again, when you believe in that the ideas that you have are saving the world and that they lead us to a more utopian vision, then you're not afraid to basically lie or have double speak about your positions. And I've never really heard, here's the interesting part about it, and I may have missed it, and I'll freely say if you have a clip, send it to me, but I've never heard Kamala Harris explain her dichotomy very well. She didn't do it in the debates very well. She has not done it as vice president. This duality of the Kamala Harris prosecutor in California versus the Vice President Harris that is now on the bandwagon for weed. Okay, it's just whatever you want to call it. Marijuana is the end thing, so they're jumping on it because they also believe that it will get them the young vote, which they desperately need coming into November. So putting all of this in perspective, let's look at a few things. And it is a great article that was out of the American Spectator, Francis Simpa, and if I mispronounce that, I apologize. But he wrote an article called "We're Closer Than You Think to Civilization Suicide, Lessons from Burnham." Liberalism, he wrote, permits Western civilization to be reconciled to dissolution. Remember, this is something to think about. For conservative scholars, you may have, again, you probably know Burnham, but Burnham was far left, socialist, Trotskyite, whatever you want to call it. The article points this out in the 30s. He changed as he was going through. He left the socialist era. He was more a non-communist left, and then he became more and more conservative in his viewpoints as he worked through World War II. He has several books, The Managerial Revolution, The Machiavellians, which he took the book Machiavelli and The Prince, and how that actually, he wrote a book about how the democratic facades glimpse the realities of political power. He continued, he predicted, it was an early predictor of the Cold War coming out of the World War II. And in his big break, when he finally, as the article points out here, comes when he confronts this issue of Russia and the liberalism of containment. Now, we see this in before the World War II, when we see this in the appeasement process of Britain, France, the world around Hitler. We see it around the doctrines that we're seeing a little bit of today of appeasement of Iran and China and others, just trying to make them happy so that they won't do anything wrong. We saw how that fell apart. Burnham's criticism, there was this passive containment of the Soviet empire, and they're unwilling to confront, the issues that we're trying to subvert our own government. And so the break came. In 55, Burnham became founding editor along with William F. Buckley's National Review. And for many, many years was the main writer there. He, again, wrote a lot of things, but this interesting book that is discussed in this article was The Suicide of the West. And there's a quote in here in this article that says that by Brian Crozier, said that Suicide of the West dissected liberalism one by one in his manner at once gentle and intellectually ruthless. Crozier wrote this article back in '83. He said he shows liberal ideology or ideas up for the woolly, muddled head notions that they are. Burnham's colleague Jeffrey Hart also called Suicide of the West Burnham's masterpiece, one of the central works of political cultural reflection of our time. Now, the main theme of Burnham's book, and why I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to sort of jump back and forth from the discussion of Burnham in present day, is that the West was contracting in both terms of geography and values. And interestingly, he didn't blame what was interesting is Burnham didn't blame liberalism for causing the West contractions. He wrote that have something to do, I think, with the decay of religion and the excess of material luxury. And I suppose with getting tired and worn out with all the temporal things. He said but what happened was the ideology of liberalism serves to justify and reconcile our decline by diminishing the achievements of the country and Western civilization, ridiculing the notion that the United States and the West are somehow exceptional or superior to other countries and civilizations, deriding the sentiment of nationalism, promoting a universalism that transcends national sovereignty. There's your key. Okay. Again, Burnham makes a very interesting point here. He says that the decline of faith, the decline of the family, and the rise of material excess and luxury, which you see going on. And nowadays, maybe you see this for those of you who do more social media than you should, some of you probably have seen on Instagram or some of whatever social media outlets you look at, where they'll post these pictures from the 40s and 50s or a little later, and they show what they see as a society that is working, that is fit, that is just a whole different issue. And they say, what's the difference? Well, a lot of the difference is come in that we went through a societal change of food and of work habits and families and the disintegration of the family, the rebuilding of the family. This is all, in the last 50 years of my lifetime and expansion. And he says, now that's the underlying cause, that we became more apt to the materialistic growth phase of what our ideology or our growth in our country, the greatness in our country has given us. But when we started on the downhill slide, realizing the problems is like in my generation coming into the 60s and 70s, and when divorce rates skyrocketed, and the rise of single family parents and others started coming through, the latchkey kids issue of these 70s and into the 80s became more of a thing. It became more of this is just the accepted norm, and we're not where we want to be, but that's okay. Liberalism then comes in and says it's okay, because liberalism says that the decline and diminishing of our achievements is actually that we're not that great, and that the United States and the other West are not exceptional. They're not superior to other countries. The ideas of freedom, these ideas of expression, these ideas of hard work, the idea of capitalism, the idea of businesses and our societies being able to rise from literally nothing and have the intellectual lead, the intellectual property lead, the manufacturing lead. This idea was somehow ridiculed as not being that good. So if you have a society that is struggling with itself over here, and you have liberalism, which says that's okay, in contrast to conservatism, which was saying, look, no, we do have a successful society. We do have American exceptionalism. We do have Western successism. And you compare that to the ideologies of these other parts of the world that you're saying are so good, without the freedom, without the elections, without the things that you have in the West, then you're basically, you're losing where we came from as a country. Burnham's book discusses this, and the idea, though, that the notion out of it, there's a lot of other things in the book, but it's this, I'm taking these parts in where he says that when you start deriding nationalism, when you promote universalism that transcends national sovereignty, how is that actually the real issue, and especially this national sovereignty issue? We've talked a lot about on the show here in the last little bit about national sovereignty. National sovereignty is an integral part of who we are as a country because we have a border. We are who we are in this society because our society in the United States is a defined entity, just like other countries, a defined entity with a defined border, and really should be defining moral principles. If you go back to the founding of our country and the founding documents, I was just in D.C. this week, and I had not been by the Jefferson Memorial in a long time. We had a few breaks in meetings, and we went by there. Lisa was with me, and we went by and went to the memorial. And of course, the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, beautiful. But just reading the documents, and going back and looking at the founders, and never, in Jefferson's words, never, paraphrasing from myself, saying, never let the tyranny of the mind ever become. I will fight against that, because education and understanding is where we come to in our country to fight off those that would rather us be mediocre or weak. We can never be that and continue as a great country. He also, Burnham in this book actually predicted, and many of his thoughts processed not only the writings outside the book and others, predicted the rise of liberalisms in the court. Basically, the living document aspect of the meaning of the Constitution being dependent wholly on time and circumstance, and not the basic principles that there are bumpers, so to speak. And this is where the freedoms of our country are outlined, and you're not to mess or change with that dynamic that is caused us to have a civil society for so many years. So as we look at this, you may say, well, Doug, what is a book 60 years old, or what are these ideas of someone who is now long past, and the ridicule of what he predicted back then showing up now? Well, I mean, look, when Burnham and talked about liberalism, talking about diversity in religion, cultures, and ridiculed backward the Westerners who believed in the superiority of religion or culture. This is not an outdated 60s concept. This is not a hippies and view of, traveling and up against the man, so to speak, because you see Hillary Clinton in their use of the word deplorables. You see Barack Obama with his warning against people clinging to their religion and guns. Again, this is a dumbing down in the sense of our society and acceptance that what was the basis of our country for so many years is being, attacked at its root as being illogical, infallible, or fallible, because the left does not want to have a structured society in which there are the facts that we are different. We are, men and women are different. Our lives are different. Our backgrounds are different. But in a country such as the United States, you can have people who succeed and do well and grow in a society that is ever changing, and making sure that we're still doing things right in the sense of protecting individuals' right to be all that I believe, and many believe God created them to be. But the minute you have government choosing the outcomes, the minute you have a breakdown in national sovereignty, such as our border, again, national security issue comes straight from our border. Liberalism has said, basically believes that national sovereignty or borders are an outdated concept. They if you listen to AOC, if you listen to many on the left and the Hispanic caucus and others in Congress, they are basically saying that this idea of a national border is an outdated concept. That anybody ought to be able to come in whenever they want for whatever reason. No legal backdrop to that. And if you don't believe me, just look at the way they discuss asylum. Asylum was never meant to be an easy ticket into the United States. Asylum was there that is you could come to the United States if it was the first country past the country you were leaving that was safe. We know that's not true for the vast majority of the asylum seekers coming out. And by the way, there's nothing in Mexico in which the government is causing or allowing asylum to be needed in the United States. They're doing it because they make a lot of money over it. Okay. If you don't believe it, just look at the people coming across in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California. They're coming for jobs. They're sending most of the money back. Most of them will go back and forth. They don't really have a desire to break from where they were. They're coming for economic reasons. That's not an asylum issue. But if you listen to the left, asylum has now become the legal pathway to enter this country. And that is, again, going back to what I've mentioned here this morning with Burnham and the discussion of the basically the downplaying of the society, in that liberalism says that's okay. Liberalism says, those outdated concepts of country and pride and flag waving and America, this is why you're seeing the attacks on the national anthem. That's why you're seeing the turning of backs, the kneelings. Again, the issues that are coming up here take away from and remove from the effect that there are institutions and standards that keep us together. I don't, quite know how to continue that, to discuss that process. But it really hits to the very heart of our civilization. So when you look at our inner city crime, when you look at the fact that you have illegal immigrants who are coming here committing crime after crime, many who are coming here are being kept in servitude to cartels and others. We're creating a society that liberals would promote as utopian. And the reality is it's only utopian for the liberals who believe that they're benefiting off the system, but for the ones that they've actually cast down, dispersed, and took into account our country's decline and called it okay, is really the issue. Now you're saying, well, Doug, I don't believe that, it's that big of a problem. And the issue is, not what we perceive it to be. And that's just, again, not true. How do I know that? Just this past week, we have been inundated with stories such as the Planet Fitness, who now is just allowing men to go into women's locker rooms. And really, they just put it into their policies, and it's nothing that is been announced, really. But now they're saying a grown man can walk into the women's locker room, clothed or unclothed, walk around and be a part of that. And someone confronted them about this at one of the local Planet Fitness, and the manager basically said, "Are you complaining about it? Is it make you feel uncomfortable? Then we'll deal with it." Again, what I just talked about. When is this normal? There are differences in men and women. Do not make us equal. That is not the way it was in the sense of equality, of the realization that men and women are not the same. Equal in abilities, equal in other things. Yes, I mean, women should be able to do anything that they want to do in the work world, life world, wherever. I mean, nobody's taking away from the value of a woman in society, and I'm definitely not. I live with strong women. I'm married to a strong woman. I mean, but the physical differences, the norms. But when you go into that last part, when the border and everything else is there, but when you decide to break down the very last barriers of what science, life, and everything else will tell you is what you're seeing and is true, then this is a problem. And Planet Fitness right now is facing the repercussions of that. You go into the idea that what is the left's infatuation with drag queens and drag shows for kids? Now, let me hear me clear. As an adult, past the age of 18, consenting adult, I don't care what you do. I don't. I disagree with it. You ask me my opinion of it, I'll tell you. But this idea that you're giving libraries are having drag queen story hour, when you're having, I believe in Washington State, they're having a camp for Drag 101 for ages 12 to 18. This is government money going to this. And flip this around. What if it was government money in that same library that had Christianity 101? The left, the ACLU, the fringe would be just livid. But Drag 101 is okay? As we go forward in this, this is just frustrating, but it's what we see all the time. It is the left taking and tearing out the norms of society while at the same time calling it okay. How you call this okay, I have no idea. But Burnham's book hits it. It's 60 years old, and the ideas expressed are as lucid today as they were then. This is what we're seeing in America. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to the Doug Collins Podcast. Glad you're here. We'll keep talking about things like this as we go forward. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you again real soon.